Hey everyone, I'm Thomas Bleach and I'm joined today by Muki to chat about her brand new EP, Car Crash Through Your Heart, Part 1.
I'ma take you to my fuck. It's in your eyes, listening better. You know if you're blind, listening better.
Hey Muki, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I am great. I'm so excited to chat to you about this EP and kind of dive into the world of Mukiverse.
Yeah, I know that. What is Mukiverse?
What is Mukiverse? Well, that was going to be my first question. What the fuck is Mukiverse?
I guess Mukiverse is like my delusional alternate reality that I live in my brain, and I just wanted to share that with my fans. And I think with the way that I write so visually, and so the Mukiverse just kind of like brings my fans into that kind of part of my creativity, which is really cool.
I love that because it really does introduce you to what the Mukiverse is visually and sonically. So from listening to this body of work from start to finish, what do you want listeners to kind of, what do you hope that they'll kind of take away or learn about you and who Muki is now as an artist, maybe compared to your debut EP?
I think the biggest thing is I, as a human and as a person, have had so much emotional maturity over the last couple of years. And, you know, when I did my last EP, I was very much going into it really blindly, really naively, and I just kind of wrote and did whatever I wanted. With this EP, it's definitely a little bit more intentional. Like there's a bigger narrative across the whole thing with the visuals and the songwriting. So I think for me, I would love my fans to just get a little bit more insight into who I am as a person. And yeah, I just think this record for me has so much more depth and honesty and rawness. And so I think my fans will learn a little bit more about me as a person, which is kind of cool.
I think this is also darker, like lyrically for you as well. Like this is probably the most vulnerable lyrically on a personal level that you've been before. Like obviously you've done heaps of songwriting for other people, but I feel like this is explicitly probably the most vulnerable for yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Writing this record has been really a very cathartic and healing thing for me. And I kind of mentioned this a lot, but there was a period of time where I couldn't write for myself because I was going through a lot of shifts, a lot of changes, and I was kind of going through these traumatic experiences that I'd never had before. And I couldn't even process it. You know, when you're like kind of hurting so much that you can't process it because you're like, you'd probably just combust. I very much had that experience. And so, and that's like a large part of why I got into songwriting for other artists as well, because I physically couldn't process what was going on for myself. And so, yeah, this record does explore some really kind of darker themes that the earlier Muki stuff doesn't explore as much. And that's just because that's what I was going through at the time. And I've always wanted to be honest and raw in my work. And the way that I could do that is by, you know, taking some of these darker themes and then twisting them a little bit to kind of make them these like sassy pop bangers, which is like, I think what people expect from Muki is these like really sassy pop, high energy songs. And yeah, I had to find a way to kind of balance that duality between like the sadness that I was going through in my like personal life and then being this like bubbly, fun Muki character that people know me as. So yeah, I think it does. You're right. It was definitely a darker record.
I feel like also because I Make Boys Cry is probably the EP's big anthem moment. It's probably your biggest pop moment you've had personally as well.
Yeah.
But was this song always intentionally savage? Because I feel like there is lyrically a very vulnerable story to it.
Yeah. The idea of I Make Boys Cry actually came out of, I mean, it wasn't actually intended to be a pop song as such. I actually remember vividly writing down that title because I always start my songs with titles. But yeah, there was that period of my life where I felt like I was the one that was doing all of this damage. And, I went through that journey with myself. And out of that came this song, I Make Boys Cry, which was, intended to be a really sad song where I was like putting my hands up and going, yeah, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
However,
In the Muki verse.
in the Muki verse is this part where I can just be this really brave, really bold, really unapologetic person. I think the real version of me is a little bit more empathetic and like cares about people. But like Muki, as much as I am Muki and Muki is like it's just an extension of my personality.
Now, on the EP, we've obviously heard quite a few of the songs through singles, but one of the new songs is Tears in the Rain, which is one of my personal favorites on the EP itself, because it gives me
Mine too.
serious Robin dancing on my own vibes meets Sophie.
Began that song with Senji, and I was kind of in this really obsessive state around Blade Runner, and it was the same week that one of the main characters died, and me and Senji were talking about that because I was saying, oh, I'm so obsessed with Blade Runner, it's like such a shame that this person has died. And at the end of the original movie, that character that the actor plays shares this incredibly beautiful monologue, and the monologue talks about this idea of like we're just kind of like us as humans are all floating in this rock, and we're kind of like all of our moments, all of our tears will get lost like tears in the rain.
All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
And I love that idea of like all of the tears that I've cried over, the various people that I've been in contact with. I don't know, like anyone who's hurt me or who I've hurt, all of the tears that we've cried, they kind of like fade over time, and you kind of forget those things a little bit.
Yeah.
Or like the tears just like fade. And I love that visual of it, of like you can't see tears if it's raining because you've got rain on your face. And like Tears in the Rain, the idea behind it is also like that first time that you meet your ex-partner or your ex-best friend, or like what that person that you haven't seen in ages, is the first time that you confront them after like the breakdown of your relationship. And the first verse I wrote with Seb in that original session, and then the second verse I wrote 2 years later after I had that experience. So it's almost like the first verse was written hypothetically, and then the second verse was like the actual real conversation,
the reality.
It was a very honest verse. I think I wrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it, and then I just returned back to the original because it was just the most honest fucking thing I could have said, and it spilled out of me, that second verse. So yeah.
The first time I heard this EP was in the car with you, and you actually played me this EP pretty much from start to finish, and you showed me all the songs and how it was going to go. And we had some pretty honest conversations about I Make Boys Cry. And that's the reason I asked you that question before, because I want to give you the spot to kind of talk about the truth behind it, because that song wasn't a happy song as much as like the merch and everything around it is so savage. It was actually, like, as you said, a very vulnerable time in your life. And there was a lot of gaslighting, wasn't there? There was a lot of things going on in your life that was hard to navigate.
Yeah. I think after I came out of that really weird part of my life, and the more that you heal and the more that you kind of process through it, I kind of started to recognize that kind of element where I was, I think I come out of that going, there was elements where I was emotionally abused. And part of that emotional abuse was like this feeling of guilt. Like I was made to feel guilty about breaking up with someone who was emotionally abusing me. And that is classic. That is actually classic coercive control. It's classic gaslighting. again, like a big storyline, not even just with I Make Boys Cry, but with Level Mindfuck, it is that narrative. Like, you know, I didn't know that I wasn't necessarily the villain, because I was
Yeah.
made to feel like I was the villain because I abandoned someone, or and abandoned someone. You know, that's the narrative that they tell you. You abandoned me. You know, I'm gonna die without you. Those kind of things that you, like, no single person should have to carry that. And having to try and discuss that and talk about that with anyone is so tricky. And I always process things through my music. So Rebel Mindfuck is actually a great example of that, because that whole song is a mindfuck, like, on its own.
Yeah.
And what I was trying to discuss with that song in a playful, fun way was that feeling of like feeling like you're the villain, and feeling like the first verse of that song is like, I got your money on my hands dripping like it's your blood. It's like that I'm the villain. I'm the one that's doing all this
Yeah.
shit. And then you go, and then I think what's so cool is I have this like elevator sound, right, in that song. And it's like this new, like, I go into a new headspace,
Yeah.
right? That's what that elevator sound kind of represents for me. For me, it's going into that new headspace. And then you're at the other side of that kind of like really dark part where you can see things for what they were. And it's like, oh yeah, I bet you wish you never met me, because you know that I know who the fuck you are. Like, I know who you are deep down, and I know what you've done now. It's that
Yeah.
twist, it's that turnaround. And I think it kind of sounds like it all comes from one person. It's all like this thing, but it's this journey that I went on as an actual human, kind of
Yeah.
walking through that experience of feeling trapped, gaslit, all of those things, and coming out the other side and having, like, I guess, the bravery to kind of talk about it, even though I haven't maybe spoken about it as much as I should have. I think I'm still trying to find the language around how to like talk about it.
Yeah. What's your biggest fear about talking about it? Is it articulating it, and is it making sure that you are speaking about it in the best way possible, or is it afraid that people are going to misconstrue all the, I guess, vulnerability that you've had about yourself because of the gaslighting?
As much as I'm like not afraid, and I think it's a really important thing to talk about, like, I think if you've gone through that level of abuse and the trauma, this is PTSD, classic PTSD. Of course, I'm still afraid. I was emotionally abused, and it's hard to talk about because you don't have any physical scars. They're all emotional, they're all mental, and they do that level of coercive control and manipulation gets into your fucking mind and makes you feel like
Yeah.
you're the crazy one and you're the evil one and you are to blame. And yeah, there's part of me that's like a very small part of me that's afraid that if I was to speak out about it, that person would turn it around somehow on me, because that's what gaslighting is.
This EP is chapter 1.
Yeah.
What can we expect from chapter 2? Can you give us some tea? Can we spill some tea?
Here's the situation. When you end a relationship, be it with your friend, a job, a partner, whatever, you go through this like period where you're super sad and you are, you know, emotional, you're processing all of those things. Let's say that experience was part 1 of,
Yeah.
of this journey. The natural next step in that process is generally like, you know, the fuck you, the glow up, the all of those moments. And I think that's as much tea as I want to spill.